Hey, before we get to today's great episode, wanted to let you know of a new exciting thing going on for the Lounge. For the first time since we started this podcast, the Lounge has entered into a partnership with a company that is aligned in how we think. Completely stop gambling. So Betttr is giving away 200 free subscriptions for life to the first 200 users from this podcast. Download Betttr, find the link in the show notes, or searching Betttr in your app store. So it's Betttr, BETTR, quit gambling. Search for that on the App Store or click into the link in the podcast show notes. So I'll see you on Betttr. And now to today's episode. Welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. My name is Eric, and I'm a compulsive gambler in recovery. I made my last bet on June 15th, 2021, so a little over 3 years and 2 months ago. It's great to be back in the lounge. This is experience number 8, season 2, episode 2. We're excited to get back at it. Been away for a little while. And we have a great interview tonight coming to you from Wisconsin. My buddy and brother in recovery, Gavin. Gavin, welcome into the lounge. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. Super excited. And yeah.
All right. So the way we're going to kick it off, as we've done over the last few episodes, we are going to talk first about Gavin's recovery song. So this is sort of the song that the last several guests, as well as Alyssa and I, had done from the beginning, talking about what's that song in recovery that you relate to for your journey. So Gavin, talk to us about the song you picked and maybe a brief comment about why.
Sure. Yeah, my song for recovery would be Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. And it's a song that speaks to me simply from the first line that says, I remember when I lost my mind. And it proceeds to be a great song. Many of which I assume know that song. It's kind of like a one-hit wonder for Gnarls, but yeah, it speaks to me because I don't know, I kind of like re-listened to it after recovery, and like for some reason the lyrics kind of spoke to me in my journey. And yeah, I think it's a great song, and that's why I chose. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I think it's one of the ones that make me feel good about the decisions I've made in recovery.
Awesome. Okay, so that was called Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I have to admit, I've never heard it, so I'm immediately going to go listen to it after we
Sure.
do this interview. But it will now get added to the compilation of other recovery songs. And I know Alyssa is going to work at putting together a whole release as we can continue to compile those. So thanks for sharing that. I was tempted to ask you to sing a line, but I'm not going to do that to you.
Yeah, I would fail miserably. And yeah, listeners can listen to that on their own. It's a great song.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that, Gavin. All right, so let's dive in. So let's start, first of all, with what is the date of your last bet?
Date of my last bet was May 1st, 2023. I have 477 days stay without a bet, which is pretty awesome.
Awesome. It's very awesome. Oh, you're coming near the big 500-day mark. That is super cool. So about a little over a year and 3 months now.
Yep.
That is awesome. Cool. All right. Well,
time flies.
Time does fly. Time flies in recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right, so we're going to dive into Gavin's story. I'll give you really briefly before we dive in. I met Gavin early in my recovery, actually, via some virtual online recovery meetings, and we'll get into a lot of that story. So it's been probably about 3 years from when I actually met Gavin. And so you can kind of figure, as he just said, he's got about a year and 3 months from his last bet, that there's probably a relapse story within that period of time. And we're going to get into all of that in Gavin's journey because it's important to talk through those things. So let's kick off, Gavin. Talk a little bit about maybe your childhood upbringing, just a little bit about what went on for you as a kid growing up, and then we'll get a little bit into maybe where some of the stuff started brewing for you that maybe took you down some paths that were a little bit challenging.
Yeah. I kind of, as I think about early childhood for me, it was like kind of like the perfect concoction to become a compulsive gambler. And I think of when I was young, I was always first off like a bit of a troublemaker. Had always had like a hard time, um, you know, conforming to like normal classes. I'm talking like kindergarten, first grade. Like I always had a hard time sitting still. I was always like trying to be funny or something. And so like I learned at a normal age, like I had to like act right first off. I think I was always like super, I mean, I have ADHD, and so I'm like a bit hyper. And that shows off in school like a sore thumb. And plus, around that time when I was really young, around 5 or 6, I learned this game Texas Hold'em, which was played around me often. Uh, and I loved it because it was a game where I could beat adults and beat and like at my young age could um yeah uh, compete in like games, and it was like it gave me a rush, something about Texas Hold'em. So like it
Wait a minute.
love
I got to stop you. At
sure.
5 or 6 years old, you were learning Texas Hold'em. So tell me about, because I think for listeners, that has to immediately stop everybody in their tracks and say, wait a minute, wait a minute. So was that it? Was that online? Like, what was that experience? How you like kind of fell into playing Texas Hold'em when you were 5 or 6?
You know, I can't really remember exactly how it happened, but if I had to guess, it was like my dad would occasionally have some like tournaments or games with friends at her house. And knowing me, I was probably like, how do you do this? I want to learn this. And so I probably asked how to learn, and I learned the basics of it and played and wanted to become the best. And so that was a common theme of mine for a lot of years of my life, just wanting to like be as good as I can at the things I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I think it was something that like caught my eye at a young age and instantly wanted to become really good at it. So it was me venturing into a space I had no idea about and wanting to learn it as much as I could. And that's how I was a lot as at a young age, is I wanted to learn about things, and I was super curious about things. And uh, something about Texas Hold'em made me like super enthusiastic. Yeah.
Wow, that is I think that's the youngest age I've yet to hear in all the people I've talked to who started playing some kind of gambling game at 5 or 6. So then what starts to happen as you get into, now you're in school, you're with all these other kids, and so what starts to kind of transform in your life then?
Yeah, so Texas Hold'em stayed with me for quite some time. I got this plug and play game. I don't know if you know plug and play. It's you plug it into like the AC ports of a TV where you just play Texas Hold'em tournaments. And like I loved that concept. And so I played that game for many years. And as far as going to school, it was all fine. Like I said earlier, like I got in a lot of trouble. I was a troublemaker. Couldn't like sit still in my seat, and like, um, like was just like a hyperactive kid. And I guess the next part of the story would be I go to video games, and a lot of these video games, or this particular video game I played, was had an aspect of gambling in it, had like a whole economy in it. And this was like when I was probably like 10 years old. I played this video game. Uh, I feel like I need to put in here like my parents were great. Like my parents are great. And I was just like that kid that like no matter what boundaries you set, like I would find a way to get past them. And that was like this video game. It wasn't rated M, which my parents wouldn't allow me to play. So like I found this video game that just so happened to have like the first economy out of any video game. And I played thousands of hours of this game. I feel like from a very young age, I always had like a bit of a desire to escape because I didn't conform to society well. And so this video game gave me a complete way to escape as much as I was able to play it. And trust me, my parents tried to put like parameters and of like how much I could play and when, and I would find a way around them. And this game had a way to gamble in it. And this is something I've found out through recovery is that like I remember when I was 10, 11 years old, like I like kind of gambled beyond my means in this video game. And yeah, as things progressed, I ended up kind of getting like banned from PayPal. Uh totally like there was some like kind of crappy stuff that happened from this video game that I played a lot of because of gambling. And then I kind of like I had to stop, obviously. I was like, once my parents found out, they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Um, and as time went on, I kind of went without gambling. And obviously I couldn't gamble legally at the age I was. And yeah, that kind of brings me to high school, and eventually I hit the online Texas Hold'em as soon as I was legal age, and yeah,
Now, you said a couple of key things to me that are those trigger words for what maybe led into gambling and ultimately into an addiction, because you use the word, you learned how to escape early. Um, did was that at the time when you were going through that? Did you even understand what was happening to you in terms of withdraw and isolating and being at home playing these video games and kind of just disappearing from from everything?
yeah. As we're speaking here, it would be super interesting to get one of my parents' perspective on this because I don't remember a whole lot, but I remember around like third grade for me, I was diagnosed clinically depressed, which I had
Mm.
no idea what that meant at the time. Um, and so apparently there was something in my brain that just like didn't allow me to be happy all the time. And I remember that being a super like exclusive thing for me at that age because like I mean I'm in third grade. I'm supposed to be like swinging on the monkey bars,
That's
not
right.
right. And so yeah, I think escaping was a very like unique thing to me at that age. Is like
Mm.
life, like my normal life being in at school was like I was always told to not do that and to you know like be act normal, like um and so it always made me like upset that I couldn't like be the way like I wanted to be
Mhm.
in school. And so like boom, the second school's over, I can hop on this video game and act exactly how I'd want to act. And so it was like home to me,
Yeah.
this is a place where I can feel normal.
Right. Yeah, and I think definitely as we get into addiction and then recovery, there's so much documented evidence and correlation and medical experts that talk about this absolute direct correlation from depression, anxiety. You mentioned ADHD, all of those emotional illnesses that absolutely correlate ultimately into addiction. And so I think it's really um, it's really poignant that you talk so openly and honestly about it at such a young age, that this is what occurred for you. And boom, it's I think anybody who goes through gambling addiction can in some form relate to exactly what you're talking about, regardless of what age it hit people at. And maybe it hit you a lot earlier than it hit some other people, but it's I think it's tremendously relatable. So no, thanks for being open and sharing about all that. All right, so now you started to get into high school now, and now you're in the Texas Hold'em world. So tell me about what occurs now in that sort of spectrum of time for you.
Yeah, well, I feel like honestly, Texas Hold'em kind of started very first year of college. High school was a very interesting experience for me that I don't know if is really relative to the talk we're having today, but you know, at least high school was more, I was super like, I didn't have like any friends coming into high school, didn't really like have, uh, yeah, didn't have a lot of friends, kind of felt like a misfit and like had my only desire was to like have a bunch of friends, maybe find a girlfriend and do the things I feel like a lot of high schoolers like would want to do in high school. And I I feel like it's cool to share this here because like I ended up doing exactly those things I wanted to do. I got a bunch of friends and got a girlfriend and I just want to say it ended up being like a horrible experience for me. Like I got those things I wanted in high school, and like the girlfriend I had at the time, it's a horrible experience. And looking back on it, it was likely me at fault because I was probably not the most level-headed kid at the time, and like a lot of the friends I had like weren't the friends I like needed in life, and so high school was kind of like a love-hate relationship, and getting out of that time, yeah, I mean, online Texas Hold'em was like boom, that's the thing where something I've been, you could say, training for a lot of my life, I could make money from, and so this game Texas Hold'em, which I knew extremely well from a young age, um, I could make money from it. And also, it was an escape. I didn't have to think about the things that happened with my relationship or think about my friends. And I could just zone in on this one thing that I was good at. And I was good at Texas Hold'em. And for multiple years, I would say 3 years, as soon as turning 18, I would play online Texas Hold'em and like multiple hours every single day, sometimes more than multiple hours. I would just play Texas Hold'em. And at this time, I had zero idea it was a problem. It was like the opposite of a problem for me because this is something I really enjoyed doing and won money from. And so there was absolutely no recognition of a problem for me at that time, yet I was losing so much time with friends and so much time that normal college people would do. I felt I definitely felt I was missing out on a lot, but at the same time, um, it wasn't horrible for me. It was a great escape.
Oh, I totally relate. I mean, my own experience was, in sports betting, and then when it came online 20 years ago or so, early 2000s, it just allowed me to escape and isolate and be in the happiest place in the world by myself. And though I was much older than even what you're talking about, where you were at the time, I think that's why we talk about this addiction. It doesn't discriminate against age. People become addicted to gambling, like in your case, in your teens, to people even in their 60s and 70s. I've heard people turning into gambling addicts. So I think it really speaks to the emotional behaviors, the disconnects, the escapism. We all have our own individual stories. But yeah, when you said that, it just reminded me, it took me right back to how it felt for almost all of my years of addiction, certainly the last 15 to 20, which was isolate, escape, and be in the happiest place because I wasn't needing to answer to anybody else other than me.
Yeah,
You know?
that
All right.
that's spot on.
Okay. All right. So now you're doing all this Texas Hold'em activity. So where does this go? What's happening? How does this escalate? And then what's coming next?
Yeah. For years I was playing Texas Hold'em. I would love to see like an hour counter on like how much hours I put into online Texas Hold'em. It would probably be mind blowing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say from the age of 18 to 21, I mean, half my life was Texas Hold'em. And it really escalates, I would say, during the pandemic, which seems like somewhat of a common story. The pandemic kind of like gave that opportunity for people like myself who were like escapists and to like thrive because like this is a time where staying home and being on your computer for like 6 hours or more a day is like normal because that's what you had to do it during this time. And yeah, it escalates because uh mainly because I was friends with a lot of people who use Discord. It's a common thing used on people with people my age, and it's like just a hangout spot where we can all talk with each other and play whatever games we wanted to. And it just so happened that a lot of my friends were playing uh online slots, which were on was pretty mainstream at the time, honestly. If you know people like XQC or like Trainwreck or a lot of big names in the like streaming industry were heading to these online slots, and a lot of my friends would play these slots, 20 cents a spin, low amount of money. And streaming it to the Discord I was in, and these are my friends playing these slots that, and by the way, I was always like, what are slots? I don't understand why people would play them. They like, it was never like an appealing thing to me, um, for as long as I could remember. But I remember seeing my friends win money playing these online slots. And I was like, okay, I'm like playing Texas Hold'em, like in my mind, using strategy and like, uh, able to be able to win based off like effort, I thought at the time, and these guys are pressing spacebar and winning lots of money. And I was like, why not I give it a shot? And I did, and I played on these online sites, which I don't believe like were necessarily legal at the time. If you got a VPN, you could pretend like you're in any country you'd like and play these games. And I played them, starting $20 at a time, $40. They're all crypto casinos. So you bought cryptocurrency and put money in them through that. And I had a bunch of crypto at the time. If anyone remembers around COVID, crypto was kind of at its all-time high. So if you were like someone who was really into stocks, you would probably invest in crypto at that time because they were like the fastest high moving stock. They're not really a stock, of course, that you could go in because they would be moving like 5 plus 10% a day. And so I had money in there and it was very easy just to transfer this crypto to these casinos. And it was fun at first. Although um, I never won. It always just frustrated me. And I think that relates to a lot of my gambling career, honestly, is like I just wanted to win and like I didn't. And so like I would always double down. It was uh yeah, it was not a super fun experience at any point of the journey.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're talking about with crypto related to stocks, that's going to resonate with a lot of people. I know several within the recovery community that exact thing happened. And it all aligns sort of also to that COVID timeline, and people get secluded, they're in their homes, they're online, and then everything speeds up and you got the stock movement and now you got the crypto thing that moves even faster, and it becomes this avalanche of just craziness, right? um okay, so now this we're kind of, I think, about to reach this point where this now becomes an uncontrollable problem, and now you start to do things that you never ever thought you would do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really scary how that uh, timeline escalated, because first it was me putting $20 in and being like, let's see what happens. Um, and on these sites, there was always that like mark at the bottom of the screen that's like, you have a problem gambling, question mark, like call this number, here's support. I'm like, I just always remember thinking it's a trip to think back about, is like, I remember looking at those and being like, what defines you as like having a problem? Is it me putting another $20 in after I just lost it without any fun? Um, and it very quickly escalated for me. Even though you could say I'd been gambling for a lot of my life. And I guess looking back, it was kind of all problem gambling. But yeah, those $20 turned into 40, 60, 80, 100. Common story of many people, many compulsive gamblers is, the bets started to increase, and it kind of turned into, even though I was losing, it was kind of turned into that thing that like still gave me like a rush. This is the potential that you had. And the cheering, like what added to that was that I saw a lot of my friends winning through this year or two of when I first started these online casinos. I always had friends that were playing them that it seemed like they're always winning. They would always be streaming their site and they'd always be winning. I'm like, how do you win a grand off a 20-cent bet? Like I want to see that. Um, and I never did. And so I was always chasing it. And it kind of relates to how I said at a young age, like I always want to be like good at things. And like somehow in my brain, I like correlated that with like I have to win, just like these other people have won. And for a long time I couldn't. And so being at the age I was at the time, I was like 21, 22 when I was really in it. I didn't have a whole lot of money saved up, but I had enough money where when I eventually lost it all due to gambling, I was like, what am I doing? Um, and that's where I really noticed I had a problem, is I blown all of my savings playing on these dumb online slots that like but yet the next day I would want to put more in and like hopefully win. So that's where the escalation definitely started happening.
So at this point, what are you doing in terms of income? What's happening from a job perspective?
During that age, I was still in college doing online classes. I think at the beginning, I was working like a part-time job at like Subway or something, not making much money. I'd worked a lot in high school. I did a lot of roofing in high school, and like I said, earned enough money at my age where like I could coast through all of college with the money I had saved up. Um, but obviously, since I was gambling, that all went to crap. I didn't have this money saved up. And what's crazy about it is I always thought like I had the opportunity to win my money back, because like that's what you're like, I feel like almost promised in gambling. Not promised, but like, you know, eventually you'll like be somewhat even but down. Like these casinos said they had a 95% RTP, which means like 95% of your bet is returned along across a long period of time. And I never saw any of that RTP, as they say. So I always like had in the back of my mind, like I can win something eventually. Like after I get like a grand or two, like I'll call it there and be like, well, I'm still down, but that's something. Um,
So like the law of averages will come back to me, and then I'll get to the point where it's like, okay, I lost some money, but I had fun. It was like entertainment. Like if I went to a bunch of concerts and paid for concert tickets, I'll just treat all this gambling behavior kind of along those lines.
exactly. That
Okay.
was the hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then at some point here, you delve into some activity uh, related to a business, right?
Yeah. So where I really recognized I had a problem um, was when I had no money. And in retrospect, I'm very thankful for the amount of money I had because I would have never came to this realization of myself if I had a lot of money in the bank and was able to keep spending. But since I had a limited amount of money at my age, I had no money. I dipped my toes into funds that weren't mine. And this is something that's really hard for me to talk about because sitting here is nothing I could possibly imagine I would ever do, ever. But um, gambling somehow in my own mind made me convinced myself that, if I took a little bit of money from here, I could win more, return it, and everything would be okay. Like I always had that hope in my mind of like, if I had a little bit more money, I could win, return it, and be okay. Like everything would be fine. And um, the business actually came later. What happened first was during this time of the pandemic, I convinced my parents to put some money into crypto, which at the time I truly like believed in and like truly wanted them to put money in here because I'm like, this is going to make you guys money. And so what they did at the time is they trusted me with uh, a sum of money that they I would put into crypto and hopefully see it rise. Ironically, looking back at the time, I think that was like the all-time peak of crypto, um, which is so funny because like I totally thought it was going to the moon, as a lot of people would say. And instantly it went down. And nonetheless, I had this pool of money that was my parents that I was like watching over um, in crypto. And I was like, what's $100 from here? If I take $100, I'm bound to win. I can't I can't imagine how many times I told myself that like I'm bound to win because I truly was. I was so down in these casinos without seeing any return that I thought I was so bound to win. And so I dipped into this fund that my parents entrusted me with, and I of course lost it, and then I did more and lost it. And it's really hard to say this to someone who isn't a compulsive gambler because they're like, "What are you doing? You're stealing money right now." And what I would say is that like I truly convinced myself that I would win and everything would be okay. And I never did um, until the last sum of money I took from this account that they trusted me with. Um, and uh, and yeah, I ended up taking money from my sister. I said, hey, you got to get in this, um, get in this crypto. And I took that money from my sister. And I also had a business that my best friend and I ran, and no money was safe around me, because I truly thought that I would win it all and everything would be okay. And that's really like the God shot miracle moment that happened to me was like when I truly had no more way to get money around me, like no methods of getting money, is when I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have a problem. I'm looking for money anywhere I can, but I lose it every single time. And that's when I really recognized I had a problem, was when I was taking money and really thinking I could win money back.
Wow. So, and you were how old at this? You were 22 at this point.
22, yeah.
So 22, and you've now stolen from your parents, your sister, and this new business with your business partner, who is also your best friend.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break right there on the Gambling Recovery Lounge. And when we come back, we're going to turn the page to the good stuff, because then we're going to start to talk about Gavin getting into recovery. We'll be back in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. All right, so we're back with Gavin, a riveting story. Thank you, Gavin, for all the humility and vulnerability. And it takes a lot to talk about these really tough things that you've gone through in your life and admitted some really wrongdoings. And tell everybody, I don't think we covered this, Gavin. You're today you're 25 years old. Is that correct?
Yep, 25.
25. Okay. And let's not that get lost on anybody how amazing that is that Gavin is coming on here in a public setting to tell his story at the age of 25, which started obviously much younger than that. And we're also seeing in today's gambling addiction world, and we see it all the time in our recovery rooms that we're in, younger people continue to come in droves. And Gavin is a great representation of what our youth in our society is facing today. So super proud of Gavin for coming on and talking about his story. So where we left off, Gavin, before the break, you were talking about that point of, oh my God, I can't believe I went to this place of stealing money from the closest people in my life. So where then does that take you after that happens?
Well, you know, for me at that time was like there was 0% chance I would come to these people, whom of which money I stole, and tell them like I took your money. Like that wasn't an option for me. And so how I justified it in my mind, just how I justified any bet I took after I really had a problem, was um you know, either I win this money back or I was going to kill myself. That was really my justification for making this next bet. And you know, because I didn't have the power to come to my parents and say, "Hey, you know that money you entrusted me with? Um, I spent it all." Like that wasn't a possibility for myself, to tell the truth on that, because I really had some hope that I would win that money back and everything would be okay. Um, if I really was truthful about all of this, it's, one day I did win all that money back. And it was this one day where I got on my hands and knees and I prayed, um, and let me just um, preface this with like I had no belief in a power beyond myself, no spiritual beliefs. And at this time I was praying and I prayed, if I get my money back, I will never gamble again. And on the last time I took money from my parents, I got all of the money back. And
Wow.
yeah, I and it went a week. I wasn't gambling, everything was good. You know, I didn't, go up to my parents and say, "Hey, like the crypto was down like 50% at that time." So I wasn't about to be like, "Hey, you guys should cash out at
Mm.
50% here." So no word was spoken about it. And
So can I just, I want to just ask, maybe this is more of a technical question about what you just said. So when you say I won all the money back, in essence, the stuff you stole from all of them, you won enough back to where, are you saying that if the money was back in the accounts they needed to be in, where your loved ones wouldn't have known any better that the money you took was ever gone in the first place? Is that logistically kind of what you're talking about?
exactly that.
Okay.
Um, if honestly, the taking from my sister and my business happened afterwards of this initial funds from my parents. Um, because yeah, I had gotten all this money from my parents back, but yet there I am sitting there with no money, thinking I still deserved more and thinking I still could win more. Um,
The dream world of the compulsive gambler.
exactly. Exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. So the money's back and now it's not enough for Gavin. Now what? I got to make the big score. I got to go win the vacations, the cars. Is that what's going on in your head now?
Yeah, uh, if I'm thinking of what I was thinking at the time, it's like, let's make my original money back. Like, let's make what I had in my bank account back. Um, in retrospect, coming from me in recovery, it was all a justification to place that next bet. And what really was coming, what it really came down to was like I was going to gamble. And so I had to justify it in some way, because gambling was like the only thing that gave me like any, if I'm being blatantly honest, any source of enjoyment at that time in my life. Like
Mm.
gambling was like, even though I was winning or losing horribly, it was all like garbage. It was the only thing that truly like was an escape for me.
Okay.
And so it was all justification for that.
Oh yeah,
And
I totally relate. Even when I was losing all the money I was losing, like I was happy to be doing it because I was gambling. Like I just it's crazy, but that's the disease. It just totally takes over and our minds start to think in unthinkable ways, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, uh, there's really, if you, I would love to know the psychology behind this disease of compulsive gambling because it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I had, it's completely illogical at the same time. That's your only priority is to place a bet, and I had to justify it in some way, that was completely illogical. But yet the only thing that was guaranteed was I would be placing another bet in some way at some time in the near future. I was going to be placing another bet. And yeah, as far as it relates to when I started to recover and notice I had a problem was like there was no more way there wasn't any more ways I could get money. Like every source I could find for money was gone. And that's the wall I hit. That's I remember in early recovery, like that was like the gates of hell for me was was I had nowhere to go, no money to have, and the only thing I wanted to do was place another bet, which happened to be the thing that put me in the horrible position I was in. Um, and yeah, that's when one day I walked up to my parents and I remember this feeling as clear as day because it felt like death. when it really came to it, I didn't choose the option of suicide because it's tough. I didn't know how to do it, where to, and one day I just waltzed up to my parents, and it was I felt like I was already dead, and I told them I stole this money from you. And I didn't want to be alive at that time. It was like I can't really explain that feeling of telling them that I took this money, and they're like, I can't. My mom's first statement was, I can't believe you were dealing with this without telling them, and that like they had no idea I was gambling, yet like that's all I was doing every second of every day, completely losing my mind in my insane dream world, hating life, hating myself. And it really came to that tipping point of where I was like, either I was going to die or I was going to tell my parents what I did. And I made that decision. And my parents being the amazing people they are, like my mom was like, you should try Gamblers Anonymous. You should try this program where people get better from this. And I was like, no, no way. Absolutely no shot. None of these people know what I'm doing. None of these people know what I've gone through.
Right. You're the
And
worst person in the world. Nobody's possibly done what you've done.
exactly,
Right, right. Oh my God.
exactly.
Wow. Man, when you were just talking about that feeling of it was either I die or I say it. Because it's that thing of once you say it, it's it's out of the bag and now it's really real. Like
Yep.
when we're hiding it and it's our own secret, no matter how miserable it is, it still somehow feels okay. We've convinced ourselves, I'm going to figure it out, right? And man, it takes me back to that date that I told my partner that I did it again. I ruined everything again, and I too on that day felt like I was gonna die. Um, so man, thank you for that. Whew. Um, okay, so you tell them now the cat's out of the bag. Now your mom recommends uh GA, and so now what happens?
Yeah. And I just want to point out exactly as you said, like that's what made it real is another person knowing. Because, like I said, there's always a justification in my own mind. Uh, but yeah, once it came to fruition and it was all real, um, I say, yeah, I will do whatever it takes. Of course, I never thought anything would ever work because I was really that screwed up and I had no chance. I go to this online meeting at the time in Burbank, California, and join this meeting thinking nothing could come from it. I had no idea what any anonymous group was or any recovery group was. I was like, I'm just like literally the most effed up person there is. Like
Mhm.
I can't explain anything I did. And I go to this meeting and here are like 30 people talking about experiences I've had and experiences that like are like mine. And my mom mentioned, there's going to be a lot of God talk, like just be aware, be aware for that. And I'm like, like, yeah, I don't know how this group's going to do anything to me, but I show up to this one group and this group, I think the most important thing it did was like it made me feel like I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one doing the things I was doing and losing my mind. There's another person in that meeting who was his first meeting too, and he's like, I don't know what to do. Like everything's effed up. I've nowhere to go. This is where I am today. And I'm like, man, like me too. Like it was such a mind-blowing experience for me because like everyone was saying like, the second meeting is the hardest to go to. For me, I was like, I'm ready to go back. These are people that are like that can make me feel more normal and make me feel more like understood. And um the fact of this illness is though, I never stopped gambling. It was a matter of a week, two, where I would go back to gambling because like I was hopeless, completely hopeless at this time. I was at death's door and would continue to do the thing that was killing me frequently.
Mhm.
And
So
um
you were going to these meetings, this Burbank Zoom nightly, right? And it was making you feel better. People, you were relating to people's stories, yet your reaction to that was still, I got to go keep gambling initially, right?
yeah,
Do, how was that feeling at the time? Like there was this, how am I still doing this when this program is telling me this, this is not what I should be doing?
yeah, I guess thinking upon it, in the beginning was like these people aren't as messed up as me. That was my thought. Like the people coming here, the fact that they're able to get better is a miracle. And I'm beyond hope. That was my thought.
Mm.
Um, like I had to get this money back. Like it was like, um, it's one of the 20 questions, did you often feel you had to return as soon as possible and win your money back? That one related to me so much when I answered the 20 questions because like at least that was my justification of it. Like I needed this money back. Um, and that never stopped, even though this program exists and these people facing the same problems I'm facing are here talking with each other. I really thought I was on that other level of beyond help.
Mm.
And yeah, as time progressed, all I did was I kept coming back to meetings. During these meetings, I'll be honest, there was meetings I joined online while I was still gambling. I was like, um, uh, my mom told me if I were to still live in the house, I would have to hit 4 meetings a week,
Mhm.
and so I was going to these 4 meetings regardless. Um, and
Gambling while you're in the meetings.
exactly,
That's okay. I
yeah,
was seeing a therapist. I was gambling while I was telling the therapist that I wasn't gambling. So, hey,
yeah,
you're not a unicorn as much as we think we are. We're not that special. We're not that unique, right?
yeah.
Um, so you're going through that, and then so you're in, you're out, you're constantly relapsing, and then something happens that changes the course. Can you talk about that day or that moment?
Yeah. I would say if it was really the moment that really turned things around was when I was texting a fellow member of this group that I went to, and it was like, one of the moments that have happened countless times before, and inevitably would have repeated the cycle if I didn't tell this person like I guess there's no hope for people like us. I texted this person I there's no hope. Like I'm going to end up insane, in prison, or dead. Those are my three options.
Mm.
And in this text I had with this person, uh, ended up being a sponsorship opportunity. This person was in recovery and was like, let let me sponsor you. And I I can't remember if I asked or it was offered to me. All I know is that like gambling was the only thing in my life that I ever really like had to stop or I would end up completely screwed. Like I was already completely screwed. I like pretty much gambling was the only thing I had to stop or I would end up dead is really that simple.
Mm.
And all I did, which is what page 17 of the GA handbook says, is like keep going to meetings. That's all I did. And I at the time um, I was a complete nicotine addict. I had a vape. I vape every second of every day. I
Mm.
thought the most insane nicotine addict at the time. Um, had I mean, any problem that you could have, I really did have at that time. Was I had an eating problem, I had a weed problem, I had any problem you could kind of name, I had at that time, except gambling was the one that was going to kill me. And I never had any desire to stop any of these things. Gambling just so happened to be the thing that would kill me. And so this a hand was um, given to me, and I took it because I was like, of course, like, yeah, be my sponsor. I don't know or think it's gonna change anything, but of course, I would love you to be my sponsor. And I don't know if uh, uh, if I should share it here, but it's Eric here. Eric and lend his hand to me and asked if I would want a sponsor, and I am so happy because that was over over 2 years ago, I think at this point. Um, and I'm beyond blessed because I have a sponsor who is, running this podcast right now, has many other sponsees, and is one of the most active people in the program that I know. And I needed that because I had zero self-discipline, zero desire to better myself. I was completely screwed. I was I was lost. And so yeah, I was given a sponsorship or opportunity to be a sponsee, and um it was only because I kept coming back to meetings, and I had relapsed multiple times after that because like I said, I had no hope. I just needed to get my money back is what I told myself. And yeah,
Yeah, I remember the text you were talking about. I remember where I was at work, and that text that said there's just I still get emotional about it, when there's no hope for people like us. And I know how often I felt that way. And I think when I got that text, that's when I made the call. And and that's what, yeah, started that ball rolling. So thank you for reminding me for that. But so oh man, you go along. Now you got months and months and months of recovery. All the meetings are happening. You start being of service back to the fellowship, and now you're coming up on a year, and something happens. So tell everybody about that.
yeah. Um, I was really just following number one of that page 17, which is meetings make it. I just kept coming back to meetings. As I said, I never done anything really in my life to better myself. And gambling was the thing that would kill me. And so that's the easiest thing I could do was show up to meetings. And I was abstaining, which is great, honestly, for a compulsive gambler to abstain is, I think, a miracle. Um, but when I came close to a year, um, you know, um, any compulsive gambler, as they abstain for a long period of time, they lose, or I can only speak for myself, but I lost that, desire to gamble, really. Thankfully, after going so much time. And then I came to a point where I was like, you know what? Life still sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. And I relapsed on my own doing. And that was like a really impactful relapse for myself because it wasn't a relapse of like I needed to gamble, which is a lot of my earlier recovery was like I need to gamble. Like that's like I need to gamble, period. And the last relapse was I'm gonna gamble because I don't give a shit. I'm checking out. And that relapse made me realize there's nothing to go back to. You know, like that addict part of my brain was like, hey, there's this thing that will still give you happiness uh, in the back door. All you got to do is open that back door. All you got to do is relapse. And there you're at that thing that makes you happy. I realized, uh, although it took so many times for me to realize it, that back door for me to go to was garbage. It was more shit that I've been dealing with my whole life, which is just losses and like frustration, anger, resentment, just like hating myself was that back door that I thought was like something I could keep. But what I realized is like it's still garbage. There's no exit for me to go to this thing. It was a horrible relapse experience. I thought that this thing that I've been abstaining from would bring me any glimpse of joy, but it didn't. And so after this last relapse, yeah, I was like, okay, so if I still feel this way, there are things I need to do. And uh, some of the biggest things were first, I got off my ADHD prescription, which I was on ever since high school, which was Vyvanse. And I just want to share that I know Vyvanse helps some people. For me, I was abusing it and not using it properly, and I believe gave me a desire to gamble. And um, I was addicted to it. I was addicted to this prescription. And if I could stop gambling, which I know I had the power to do, I could stop any vice I had. And so I got off this prescription. I told my doctor, hey, I have a gambling problem and I think this makes it worse. And so I'm off that. I was
Awesome.
also, yeah, I was also active, completely addicted vapor. I vaped all the time and I got off that. And I also lost like 30 pounds in my early recovery because like I had the power to do it. If I had the power to stop gambling, which is the hardest thing I ever had to do, I had the power to do anything. And after that last relapse, I changed my life. I changed the things that brought me to that place of even wanting to gamble. And um, so for me, it was honestly a blessing that last relapse. It was like there's no there's no exit for me. There's no like miracle world or like dream world of the compulsive gambler. Like that world doesn't exist. It's exactly it. It's a dream world. And I had to change things that brought me to that spot and I did. And that's why I had the days I have today.
It's an incredible story because when you talk about, first of all, relapse, which is um, far more common than people who just come in and don't relapse. I mean, the reality is recovery often is associated with relapse before somebody gets to a place of deeper recovery where that doesn't happen any longer. So to talk about the fact that you relapse, recognized it really quickly, and then got right back at it. Because I remember it was just a few days after the relapse where you contacted me and told me exactly what happened. I mean, there's a lot of story of relapse where people are out for extended periods of time doing extraordinary amounts of damage. And some people who never come back after a relapse. So the fact that you had the relapse, came back honest, and then completely changed the way you approached a recovery going forward. As you said, though we never want to have relapse happen, if it's going to happen, I think you're a great example of the best possible way to react to a relapse and to change the direction of what you're going to do forward. Because the reality is if you keep relapsing but you don't change anything, you will keep relapsing. Like it doesn't just not happen anymore because it's been 6 times or 8 times or 12 times, whatever it is, right? You have to start making significant changes in what you do in recovery, or you will continue to repeat the same thing over and over again, which is really the definition of insanity, right? You just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, thinking you're going to get a different result, and you will never get a different result, right?
Yeah. And I people often like credit me and say like, hey, like what you're doing is great. And, just as you said, like that's exactly how you should treat a relapse. I feel like I need to be completely transparent in the fact that like I I had to had the perfect set of circumstances in my life to have had the outcomes I did. And I say that in a sense that like if I had any more money, at my disposal, I wouldn't have come to these same conclusions. If I had any more outs in my life, I would have taken them. And this is coming from my whole life. I was atheist, had no belief in any higher power. I truly believe what happened to me was a complete miracle, and the set of circumstances I faced in addiction had to be exactly the way they happened for me to come this place of recovery and believing that there's something beyond myself that is helping me. Um, because I want to reiterate, I had zero desire to even better myself. I had zero desire to recover. I only went to these meetings because it would make my mom feel better that I was going to these meetings. I thought I was I had no hope. I thought I was completely screwed. And everything that happened in my story was a miracle. I I will reiterate that like I didn't do anything be above and beyond to like better myself or change myself. I kept going to meetings and everything else kind of fell in my lap. Although it was such a painful and destructive path I took, um, where I am today is nothing short of a miracle. The fact that I'm not gambling today and I haven't for 477 days is a miracle. And it was brought to me by this program that I had no idea of it existing or um I just had no idea, but this program like gave me a second chance, and it was just I kept coming back, which was said often in these meetings, just keep coming back, and that's all I did.
Um, you sell yourself short because there's a lot of people who go through this process and they don't end up with the success story that you've had. Um, and I think the connectivity to a higher power and the things you're talking about relative to miracles, I certainly believe in that. I've experienced those same things along my journey as well. But you still have to ultimately follow through and execute on all of the signals and the miracles that are presenting themselves to you, because there's a lot of people that just turn away from that and don't buy into it, and no matter what's in front of them. And I always say this about recovery: recovery is for people who want it more than people who need it, because we're all here needing it. But if you don't really ultimately want it more than you want to gamble, then you will continue to go back. And I think what you've described is exactly that scenario. You kept going back, even though you were in the program, but there was something that needed to happen that changed the narrative for you. And then it sounds like that relapse, and then the subsequent events from it that made you realize, I now want recovery more than I want to gamble, because gambling doesn't give you anything that you really want in life. Would you think that's about right?
Yeah. Except the only thing I would say is like I got to the point where gambling was the equivalent of death. If I were to gamble, I'm killing myself as much as I could. And so for me, it was really either recover, which felt good, by the way. A lot of people say like recovery is like a lot of work, which it is. But like at the same time, it's really not. It's something that like gave you hope, and coming from a place of like having zero hope, that's a pretty profound thing, is going to a place that gives you hope. And so like I really did enjoy going to these meetings, and getting some hope, um, because it gave me a shot. And I'll also give a shout out to the fact that um, GA was on Zoom meetings, because I'm in a small town in Wisconsin that can't access a whole lot of meetings. When I originally called the GA hotline, which is what I was asked to do by my mom, um, they didn't know that online ex gambling existed, the person I talked to. And so that was like that almost like reiterated the fact that like I'm alone in what I'm dealing with.
Mhm.
And I was I was shown this online Zoom meeting that had so many people that like that actually understood. And so I give a huge shout out to the fact that GA rooms are available online, because it's what saved me. I don't think a room of 3 or 4 people that don't know what online gambling is would have helped me as much as these rooms with um, so many people that understood. And yeah, again, it points to like me having the exact set of circumstances um, that happened for me to really recover, as these groups being available.
Yeah, it's great. It's great you talk so openly about that too, because I think there's a lot of people with those fears about GA, and especially young people like yourself. I know what my own, and I've talked about it on this podcast multiple times, my own misconceptions were about what I assumed was going to be the makeup of the members of GA and how I would never relate and never fit in. And hell, that's when I was 49. And at the age of when you came in at 23, now being 25, to have that level of perspective and honesty about what your experience has been is so critical. And I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this episode that this becomes an eye-opening experience of what somebody at your age has gone through and where you have now arrived at. It's a really beautiful story of the journey, and that's why you're the perfect example of what can happen at any age. And if you really believe and you're willing to be honest, open, and willing, as you said, the miracles are all out there waiting for you. All right. So, Gavin, I have a question for you. You talked earlier in the evening about the great support you've had, particularly from your parents. I want to give you a few minutes to really talk very specifically about your mom. I know she's been a vital part of your recovery journey from a Gam-Anon perspective, and joining meetings and going to a conference with you. So, what do you want to tell the audience about the importance of the support your mom's been for you in this journey?
Yeah, so thank you. Not only did my mom point me into the GA rooms initially, she also was going to Gam-Anon meetings on her own. And you know, at these meetings, she learned the importance of what a program can do. And you know, specifically, she started going to this one meeting every Thursday night with me, and it's a super interesting experience, especially having done all of the things I did, and really, I mean, it was a weird thing at first. I had stolen money from her, and yet she's here giving me support. And I can't really put into words like how awesome that is, because um, she understood what this addiction does, and it made me do things that I couldn't imagine. And how she was able to, you know, still lend a helping hand despite the things I did, is beyond me. And yeah, I think Gaminon's an amazing program for that. You know, you can be there to heal with the gambler, and yeah, I just I praise my mom a lot. She's amazing, and I can't thank her enough. Um, yeah, it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. It's just so critical to have the family support, where we all get so isolated in the addiction. And then when we're in recovery, the last thing that we want to do is be in isolation. And the people that love us the most, for those of us that have the family members, the partners, who are in the journey with us and supporting us and being a part of it, is just incredible. And having met your mom, it was just awesome. And getting a great hug from her at the conference last year was great. So yeah, it's really incredible when the people that are hurt the most by us figure out that the best way to heal going forward is not to stay apart, it's to become a part. And that is kind of the definition and I think the mantra that your mom's taken. You're a very,
Definitely,
very, very lucky man to have a
I
mom
am.
that stands by you and supports you in this. So we love her and we love you. So yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
thank you.
sharing that. Uh,
Exactly.
let me ask you just a couple questions before we wrap up. So what would you say today is still the most difficult part of the recovery process for you, even with all this progress, and you've now arrived at a place of nearly 500 days? I know you feel great, your life's better, relationships are better. What's still the most difficult part about recovery for you, Gavin?
I would say the most difficult part about recovery for me would be being honest about it in my everyday life. Because I have a lot of friends who I've had for a long time who know me, know the person I was trying to portray for a lot of my life. And that seems like um, a defect of mine is that, like, you know, I never try to be my authentic self, because if I was my authentic self, I would be like kind of depressive. I would say I would used to be kind of depressive and um like not not like I have a lot of shame towards my gambling is what I'm trying to say. And a lot of a lot of my friends I can't be honest with about recovery, even though recovery has been the most important thing and powerful thing I've ever done in my life to make life better for myself. Um, I can't be really honest about it because like it pains me so much to like tell these people like, hey, by the way, like I completely lost my mind gambling. And it's like a painful thing for me to rehash. And since life is like so much better for me today, like I don't want that exit door every day, which I wanted for so long.
Mhm.
Um, I think everything's okay, and I don't need to like share these share these things with everyone. But the truth of the matter is, like, I will have this disease, you know, like I know just from my own knowledge and seeing other people in the program that like this is something you'll have forever. I will get those days where I'm like, screw it, let's gamble. I will go back to that same repetitive thought that I had so many times that led me to destruction every single time. And I'll probably have that for the rest of my life. And the ones I love the most need to know about this. Uh, at the same time, it's very hard for me to tell people at my age group that like, hey, like I have this problem. It like it. it's painful for me. I like can't be vulnerable around my friends. It's something that I will need to learn. And to be honest, I have learned to some extent. I've told some of my closest friends about it, and
Awesome.
it's been it's a very tough experience, but at the same time, it's the best thing I can do for myself because the more people that know, the less I'm alone. And that's what this disease is in my experiences. Like I'm alone versus everything I'm doing, and the more people that know, the less alone I am. And it's really some powerful stuff.
That was an awesome quote. The more people that know, the better it is, the more you're kind of unburdened by the truth, right? And I think we get so consumed in the hiding and the lies and the deceit, and we live that way and behave that way as addicts. We almost have to figure out how to live again, and coming to terms with truth, and then letting that be known. But it's that kind of that old adage: the truth shall set us free, right? And I think, as we've talked about, offline, these experiences you've had with telling people, you just continue to feel more and more free, because it just releases that burden of carrying lies. There's just nothing heavier than living in your own lie, right? Um,
Yeah,
and it's evolving, but I love the fact that you still talk about that. That's the most difficult part, because though you've made progress, you still recognize there's a problem there for you to continue to work on and evolve with and get better at. And that's the beauty of the recovery journey, and the need to take it literally one day at a time, because you're going to have days that totally suck, and then you're going to have days that are just totally great, and most of the days are going to be somewhere in between.
right.
And so I think the evolution of that, but being really vulnerable and talking about how that's still a really hard thing for you, that's totally relatable. And hell, look, for the 25-year-old like yourself, wanting to, having to say to your buddies, I can't gamble for the rest of my life, that's a really fucking hard thing to be able to have to say, you know. But I think it's also why we don't want to make big bold statements like I just made the mistake of saying, right? It's not about I can't gamble for the rest of my life. It's that I can't gamble today.
Right.
And if I can make it through today, then tomorrow I'll deal with tomorrow. But what you acknowledge, that, yeah, when you cross that line of addiction, that's kind of who your makeup is now. And yeah, it's going to be with you. But I can tell you, with your progress, um, seeing how you continue to be less and less bothered by the urge to make a bet, and it's not really something that consumes you any longer, and you go about your life and your days without that urge. That is a miracle. And I know for me, 3+ years into this, I still can't believe that I wake up and go to sleep with peace of mind and without any urge to make a bet. That's an absolute unbelievable miracle for as long as I was trapped in the addiction. So we think along those lines, very much so. So let me ask you this. What would you say, in contrast to the most difficult part of recovery, what is the best part of recovery for you when you think about all the benefits of your life today versus what it was like in addiction?
I mean, simply the fact that I'm here today without the instant desire to place a bet, like that, that really is for me the true miracle of this program because I lived every single day for I can't tell you how many days where that was the only goal I had was to place a bet. And the fact that I'm here today, speaking on my recovery without a desire to gamble, um, is like I can't say in words like how profound that is. It's really um, it's insane that I'm here, the same person that completely lost his mind gambling and did things that I can't fathom I would ever be able to do today, while gambling, and the fact that like all that's behind me, as long as I continue to recover, that's 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 what the best thing this program offers for me is like I said, it was death or recovery. And I'm so thankful that I'm on this road of recovery. And I'll just reiterate that, it's ups and downs, that's how life is. But the fact that during the downs or during the ups, I don't have a desire to gamble is a miracle, and that's only because of the program.
That awesome words of wisdom. So I'm going to end what I like to end with a question for each guest. So, what's your message, especially at 25 years old, knowing the proliferation that's hitting our younger generation in gambling addiction now and will be for the foreseeable future, given where our country is with legalized gambling and such. What's your message for the person out there who's at day one, at step one, and they can't possibly see a way out, that this is impossible, um, like you were thinking, of those early days and those relapse days? What's your message of hope to that individual?
I would say I hope you end up at a meeting, and I would hope that you keep coming back. That's all I can speak towards is that um, I've tried everything. I tried everything to stop gambling, and Gamblers Anonymous was the only thing that helped me. And so I pray that individual struggling ends up at a meeting and keeps coming back, because for me that worked, and everything else comes to you if you keep coming back to meetings. And that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, Gavin, this has been awesome. I'm so proud of you for not just your journey, but being as open and honest as you've been all along the way with everybody you've encountered. I'm incredibly proud to be on the journey with you. And, you are a beacon of light for everybody, and particularly people that, again, who are coming into this addiction at your age and certainly far younger, sadly. And that wave is likely to very much continue because of where we are in society with gambling. And we all have a responsibility to be here for the person who's coming next. And you certainly represent a wonderful example of the younger generation, who's going to be ready and available for any number of people that are coming in after. So, love you, brother. Thanks for being here and doing this tonight. And can't wait to see where we go on the journey going forward. So, thanks for
Love you
doing
too. Thank you
this.
so much for allowing me to be here tonight and share a bit of my story. And I think what you're doing here is amazing. And I look forward to seeing it continue.
Thanks, Gavin. And thank you all for listening. It's great to be back. And like I said earlier, we're going to now be on a much better path of more consistent episodes and experiences in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. So this is a wrap on experience number 8, episode 2 of season 2 with Gavin in the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Look forward to talking to you all later.